Ladies and gentlemen, if you've been following the chess world at all here in the later portion of 2022, you know we've had a little bit of a drama. Nothing crazy, and by nothing crazy I mean it's been covered by many multiple international news outlets, and of course national news outlets here in the United States. But that aside, we've also had some good things, all right, going on in the chess world here in the last quarter of 2022, and one of those is that due to the incoming merger, acquisition, whatever you want to call it, of Chess.com and Play Magnus, we have seen Magnus Carlsen playing more on Chess.com recreationally, just in his spare time. And what that means is that he is competing for the #1 blitz spot on Chess.com, and so is Hikaru. And in this video, I'm going to show you 3 of their recent games as they both look to be #1 on the leaderboard, and that's it. That's the entire introduction. It's amazing to see 2 of the world's best in Blitz battling constantly for fun and getting rewarded for it by getting a gold medal for being #1 on the leaderboard. Now, Hikaru's 3 games begin with this game against Sergei Grigoryan's. He is, I don't know if he's originally from Hungary, but as far as his representation on Chess.com at the moment, it is Hungary. This was a ready. Hikaru begins the game with a ready, bishop g2, bishop g4, and this line where black just sort of develops the bishops before developing the knights. Hikaru plays the move. Oh, gotta crack my neck. There we go. e4. Knight e7. Now you'll notice that black has committed the bishop here, so probably knight f6 is going to be a struggle. White will play g4, removing the bishop, and then fork these 2 pieces, so black needs to go here. And then black develops like this. And Hikaru loves these positions because they are equal and full of play. So they're not extremely theoretical. Black generally has to fight against the guy who has played this thousands and thousands of times. And as you can see here, Hikaru's got a pretty big rating, right? So he's very experienced and he knows exactly how to handle these positions. Now, black makes this kind of bowl here in the center of the board with f6. Hikaru plays the move queen c1. The idea of queen c1, #1, unpins this. #2, various bishop a3 ideas. And now we have the move d4. So the knight is supporting the center expansion, and the bishop no longer has any target here on d1. And white is immediately better. Now, this position all the way back here was about equal, okay? These 3 moves by black, e5, f6, and king h8, now allow white to immediately seize control of the initiative, which Hikaru finds instantly. That's the thing about these top blitz players. They waste absolutely 0 time. Now Hikaru takes on d5 and activates the knight via c4. A Stockfish, for what it's worth, preferred knight e4, so they're not perfect chess players. But they are extremely good at taking over the game super quickly. Now, black also doesn't respond in the best way. Black plays the move knight e5, basically saying, you know what, Hikaru, you can take my bishop. I really don't care about the bishop pair. Hikaru's like, you really should care about the bishop pair, because look at this. Look at my bishops. This is exactly why Hikaru plays this opening, because now he's going to have long-term pressure. Compare that to the position after white castled. Look at how blocked everything is, at least for the light squared bishop. Even for this bishop, it hits air, right? There's nothing here yet. Like, yes, it sees that, but that would only be good if there was a queen, and that's obviously not going to happen. But you compare that to the position on move 18. Now there's a target, there's a target, there's a target, there's a target here. Queen c7, and Hikaru wastes absolutely no time here. Do you know what move wins here? It's like so ridiculous. He saw this so fast. The move that wins here for white, this is why you always need to look at things near your opponent's king that are only guarded by the king. Knight takes g7. I told you, everything was suddenly a target. Why is this winning? Rook takes e5. What? How does that even... Oh, because then he's going to go check. And after that, you cannot prevent bishop e5, which is going to win a queen. The king can only go here or block, and both of those things lose. So instead of that, black tries to defend, but now black is just a pawn down, and look at white's bishops. Still monster targets, queen c3, rook e1, every piece gets into the game, the bishop slides out of danger, and queen g3 seals the deal by forcing a queen trade and trapping the knight on the edge of the board. I mean, this man just destroyed a 2970. I've beaten probably like 10 grandmasters in my life on chess.com over the rating of 2950. if even that many. And I mean, he just made it look like child's play. You know how many points Hikaru gained for this game? 3. 3 points for beating a 2970. It's lonely at the top. I'm telling y'all. I mean, it just makes it look so easy. The incredible thing is this odd move, Queen C1. If I gave this position to like 100 players below the FIDE rating of 2,500, which is like very strong, I don't know how many of them would consider Queen C1. I really just have no idea. Maybe like 5 or 10. Like I would never play Queen C1 here, which is why like I would play G4 and then try to play Knight H4. And you see the computer hates the move G4. It thinks it's a massive weakening of the position, doesn't like this, right? Especially in a blitz game. I mean, in a classical game, maybe not. But yeah, I mean, Queen C1's just like all these moves, just so sharp and so accurate. And then like the fact that the move Queen C1 ends up becoming the main mechanism of the attack 10 moves later, just brilliant. Anyway, the next game that Hikaru played, he was with the black pieces. I believe this was a Title Tuesday game. And he played a Bronstein-Larsen variation of the Caro-Kann defense. Now, normally, E takes F6 is played in this position, but he plays this line against Alexis Serrano. And Hikaru likes these kind of systems because they create pawn structure imbalance, which he's very, very good at exploiting. And also, you know, white has to punish him, right? And Hikaru goes for this position. And you'll notice that Serrano went for this position as well, which he really did not have to do. In fact, Serrano did not have to castle long. He didn't have to do a lot of the things that he did, but he decides to go here, and suddenly Hikaru's already better, right? Now, the amazing thing here is black would love if white did this, right? Because now black improves the structure, black opens up the file, G5 is on the way, rook H5, pressure on the H file, but Hikaru now takes, isolating his structure here, but now F5, and it's tough for white to go here, and I have the G file, right? And it's minus 0.2, but all the pieces are traded. So it's like, what on earth is Hikaru going to exploit here, right? White plays G3, Hikaru plays H5. Always a useful move, because now if the knight ever moves, you're going to play H4 and use your weakness as actually an asset and try to break up the structure. Serrano plays C4 looking for D5, Hikaru goes knight F6, and now exploits this pawn with this very accurate move B5. Top engine move. Point is that after this, knight comes here hitting both pawns, and black has the C file. So, and pushing does the same thing, knight d5. So, knight e5, take, knight d5. And now, remember when we said that knight would abandon that post? Yeah, h4. Now it's minus 0.7. Hikaru has played literally a perfect game thus far. Okay? Take. Okay, we got 5 pawns each, rooks and knights. As more and more pawns get traded, you would think that this game is probably going to head for some sort of equality. You wouldn't really be that mistaken. Rook b8, a3, making him make another move. Now, again, best move. King d2, king d7. Really, any of these king moves make sense? Rook g1, rook h7. Sometimes you gotta go back, right? Computer doesn't like it. Computer actually wanted Hikaru to play e5. And after d5, he has rook c4. So his instinct was actually slightly inaccurate here, but whatever. Computer is going to ruin everything. And now Serrano's getting back into the game a little bit with b5, right? But one of the things about Hikaru that makes him so sharp is that even if he gives away some of the advantage, which he has, it's now 0-0-0, as time ticks lower and lower in the game, he is going to be a sniper. And he will not allow himself to be the last person to make a mistake. So what does he do? Comes back with the knight. Plays king d8. Sometimes you got to play a little passively. All right, now it's rook, knight, and 3. Got to be a draw, right? I mean, look how much activity there is here. a4, rook g7 check, the black king on the back rank, dead equal position. But suddenly check and check. Sorry, not check and check. You win 2 pawns, and Hikaru's a pawn up. A mistake by Serrano. 39 moves into the game. Obviously low time. Now, how is Hikaru going to handle this position, right? His king is still stuck on the back rank. Oh, that's a tragic blunder. Now, if this knight f4, and then this and this, and black is just up 2 pawns in an endgame. So 42 moves, Serrano makes a mistake, Hikaru sees it immediately, but how is he going to win this position? His king is still completely stuck. How's he going to do this? Well, let's watch. He kicks out the knight, he begins bringing his king, he kicks the knight out, he forces the enemy king back, all right? Consolidates, and once the pawns start going together, it's game over. It is absolutely game over. But you know what? What else Hikaru is going to do as this game goes deeper and deeper into the hole? He's going to win the game in style. Yes, he's going to very slowly and methodically push both his pawns together, especially because they're connected. That makes it the best. The best part about this position. E2, king f2. And now watch this. Knight d3, king f3, and e1, knight, mate. Yeah. We win in games in style. You know how many points Hikaru gained for this game, beating a 3,000 rated player? 3. He gained 3 rating points. And now, the last game that I wanted to show you, one of Hikaru's biggest rivals and sparring partners on chess.com is Alexander Bortnik. He's Ukrainian, but I think he now lives in the States. And his blitz rating is around 3,100. I think he's a top 5 blitz player on chess.com. Behind like Magnus, Hikaru, Danya, and maybe Nihal Sarin, if I'm not mistaken. One of the pet lines that Bortnik plays a lot is the Philidor, right? And he plays this a lot. Now, the Philidor, as you can see from the engine is not a big fan. I mean, it immediately goes to 0.9, and it thinks that white is just convincingly better. That does not stop Bortnik from playing this kind of Black Lion Philidor setup. And in fact, he plays it very aggressively. He plays the move g5. Hikaru plays a5. Taking away the queen-size space from black, knight f8 back, d5 expanding. So now if black were to take on d5, this would allow white easy access. If black were to play c5, this would take away a lot of squares and allow white to continue to try to bully black on the light squares. So instead of that, he just keeps the tension. Now we have takes and takes. Okay, so from the opening, Hikaru is much better. Why is he much better? Because black is starting some sort of attack that actually does not exist, while also keeping his king in the center, while also giving away important central squares. How do you give Hikaru an advantage of 1.8 out of 14 moves and expect to survive, right? Well, now let's watch the Terminator go to action. Rook a3, with the intention to play rook c3. All right, computer here for black just wants to walk the king to g7. Bortnik does this first. Rook c3, and then castles and moves his king to g7 like this. You will notice that Hikaru has rerouted his knight. He hits the rook, forces it into passivity, and plays bishop to b6, right? Rook c7 is on the way. But here comes black with knight f4. Bortnik is not going away, all right? Queen to b5. Queen to b4, making it very annoying for white to move here. Bishop d7, Bortnik's nearly back into this game. But here comes knight f1. The knight reroutes backwards to go forward to try to exploit the light squared weaknesses of the black position. You'll notice the 4 pawns on this side of the board are in dark squares, which means the light squares are weak, okay? Which means that even if you give away a pawn, the passive nature of that queen is going to make white's long-term prospects much better compared to black's long-term prospects. Bishop e6. But that's a mistake. Why is that a mistake? Well, because you have bishop takes, f takes, and rook a3. Now, Bortnik here after this must have just thought he was losing no matter what. The amazing thing is, he's not. Rook a3 is not an actual trap. Like, if Bortnik had just played a move like rook e8, rook a3 does not trap this queen, because there's rook c4. If you take, I take. If you take, I take. And if you take, then I go queen c2. I'm actually still alive. But the threat of getting his queen trapped, hand in the cookie jar, he goes here and actually gets his queen trapped. And, well, Hikaru, you know, is more than capable of winning a game on equal terms. I can't imagine what he would do to someone if they actually gave him an extra queen. And Bortnik resigned here because of this, and this, and this, and everything is falling, and the king has almost no defenses. And this was the game that Hikaru recently got to his highest ever rating. He has been over 3,300, but that was a while ago. I think in recent memory, 3,270 was his highest rating. He's fallen a little bit since then because he's at a rating where he beats people and he gets no points. Like, if Hikaru beat a 2,800, he would literally gain 0 rating, which is disgusting. And if they beat him, which they're capable of doing because they're good players, they would gain 15 rating points. So I think since then, Hikaru has lost a little bit. He's still over 3,200. But in the meantime, Magnus Carlsen was also busy. And Magnus played a few games of his own, a few little matches of his own. The first one was against a gentleman who's actually on his training team, who is Jordan Van Forest. And Jordan went into a sideline variation of the Sicilian defense and it's kind of like a Rossalimo. You'll notice that white is playing very, very solidly. Now, Magnus here can, of course, play knight f6 and castle, but Magnus is so good at chess that he's allowed to break the rules whenever he wants, so f5. All right? This is called like the vampire variation of the Sicilian. You got the fangs here, F and C, no development whatsoever for black. Bishop f5. Okay, now we're going to have some development. All right, Magnus, castle. All right, kids are watching. Nope. Magnus wants 2 bishops. All right, Magnus, castle. Kids are watching. Nope. Now he does, and he comes back. Okay, rook e1. Why is black so much better here? Black is so much better here because black has 2 bishops, okay? Slight advantage. And long-term, white's pieces are not actually developed in a way that they can be put to use. That's a very important thing. As a noob, you think at just, oh, I develop my pieces and, you know, I'm doing the right thing. No, it's about where you develop them. It's the quality of your development. Look at these pieces. White has no way to move forward at all, which is why he plays f3, because he wants to go knight e4. But f3 weakens the bishop, and Magnus immediately takes advantage of that, but he doesn't take it. He uses the fact that white is so passive to potentially create a sacrificial opportunity over here, and he does. Remember how in the first game, Hikaru sacrificed on g7? He sacrificed on the pawn protect. Look at this, knight takes g2. The top guys sacrifice and play in similar ways. They strip enemy kings of all their defenses, and then they capitalize like this. Now, black, normally, a rook for 2 pieces is not a good trade, even if it's an extra point. A rook and 2 pawns is 7, 2 pieces is 6. However, normally that's not good for the side that has given up 2 pieces. Except right now it is. Why? Because the king is so weak, and because these pieces just don't have any future. Like, look at this. Magnus is completely shutting down the piece play of Jordan. And now e4. E4 is just bulldozing straight down to f1 and opening the door for the bishop. Take. Oh, you want the free pawn? Check. And look at this. If king h1 were to have been played in this position, Magnus would have sacrificed the queen, which would have been sick, by the way. But then he would have won the game by playing bishop d4, and that's it. Look at this. I mean, this is just massacre. Just destruction. Instead of that, Jordan plays the best move, but it doesn't matter because he takes the pawn, and the attack is not over. Rook takes f2. Knight f2. Rook takes f2 once again. Both queens hanging. Take. And when the dust settles, black is just simply up 2 pawns, but it's worse than that. Black is borderline checkmating white. Queen e4, queen d1, everything is on the way, and Jordan resigns. Magnus with a dominant display in this game. Now, Magnus continued his climb up the rating ladder by playing a long match against Nihal Sarin. And to his credit, Nihal Sarin won like almost half of the games. So, Nihal Sarin, by the way, Nihal Sarin is Indian, but his flag on chess.com is Chile. I had him in a video recently, and a lot of people in the comments were like, he's not Chilean, he's Indian. And I was like, guys, do you think I don't know that? Like, I am insulted you are telling me that in the comments. His flag on chess.com is Chile. I don't know. Maybe he just likes Chile. You gotta ask him. He just changed his flag. Magnus, Norway. Yeah, Nihal is top 3, top 4 player on this website. Like, you are not going to use him as a punching bag. He is unbelievably good at blitz, okay? But this game was a lot of fun. So it began with this weird gambit. It began with d4, ed, and then b4, some sort of super sideline. Now e5, because Magnus likes to play these goofy lines. Now takes. Oh, sorry. He doesn't take on g7 yet. First he attacks the knight, then he takes. So what is going on here, right? You got the rook hanging, you got the knight on the edge of the board. This king's wide open. This pawn is about to go to d3, and it's going to be really unpleasant. Rook g8, castles rook g7, and after 12 moves each, this is the position. Magnus loves to play these kinds of lines in blitz. Like, there was a game against Jordan that he played a king's gambit, and then he played like this. It was crazy. It was a really bad game by both parties. They made so many blunders. I wanted to feature it, but I was like, yeah, maybe I'll feature the game that he just played like a world champion and not like me. Rook e1 check. So cd4. Okay. Now cd4 wins back the pawn in the center, and it's kind of like necessary because if, for example, white doesn't do it, black will play d3 and probably just obtain a completely winning position because these pawns are too strong and black is just too active. So cd4. Nihal here tries to castle queenside. Magnus plays bishop g5, disallowing him from castling queenside. Nihal sacks. I mean, it looks like a 500 played this move. Like, oh, what an idiot. He hung his bishop. Oh, I hung my rook. Damn. But it turns out it's actually the best move. Why is this the best move? How could it possibly be the best move? Well, every single piece white has is on a back rank, right? Now, I think here, instead of long castling, yeah, the engine wanted bishop d4. So it wanted Nihal to take on d4 before he castled, but he did it this way, okay? The difference is that, you know, you are not actually creating a substantial enough attack on this king to warrant counterplay, right? So Magnus is going to try to defend against this. Queen c2, queen g7, and just play rook c1. This knight is still sort of stuck. But Nihal is extremely good. And Nihal is going to very quickly get back into this game. He's going to reroute the knight back to b7. And the second Magnus goes here, we have h5. He's just going to try to attack the world champ. World champ defends. Nihal brings his rook. He got rook, queen, and bishop attacking Magnus. f3, queen e7, queen a4, rook g8. And now Magnus is like, damn, I don't know how to make progress. I'm going to sack my own rook. That's what playing Nihal does to an MF, okay? So you just don't know what to do. You start sacrificing pieces to, you know, maybe get an endgame. Apparently here, not even taking the rook is the best move and continuing this attack. But Nihal is human. He sees a rook. He takes the rook. And now Magnus has potentially a long-term better endgame. Why? 3-on-1. This pawn also important, but you'll see it's not as important as you think it is. All right, Magnus defends his king, consolidates his structure. It's a knight versus bishop situation. A knight is better than a bishop when the bishop cannot control the same squares that a knight needs to utilize. And right now, that's exactly what's happening. Knight to e6, the bishop cannot fight on the light squares. Magnus begins stripping the defenses, and g4. I think here, just how instructive this is to use this 3-on-1. I told you that this pawn was going to be a non-factor. 3-on-1, g4, boom, boom, and now you have a 2-on-0. Now, this is still defendable, but it's very difficult, especially when Magnus sends it down into a rook endgame. King f3, best move. Sidestepping, g5, best move. Why g5 and not h5? Because g5 needs to attack the rook. You need to win time in endgames. For example, d3 here, this move is everything because now black must react. But the difference is, if you try to go here, you don't have a threat. So black takes over the game. You need to think about which pawn to push with tempo. King e3 attacks the rook comes back. Now the king cannot come closer until the pawn comes closer. d3, g6. This is everything. Now h5, king e2, rook h1 slides out of the way. d2 is about to promote, but the white king goes for a walk. Magnus understands that he's going to sack the rook for the pawn anyway, and these pawns are too far. And Nihal probably at this point realized, wait a minute, I'm in trouble. Rook h5, and now look at this. If you do this, then I'm going to make a queen, you're going to make a queen, and maybe I have a perpetual check. Maybe not, but maybe I do. Instead of that, Magnus just queens. Because after rook h1, queen g2, king here, there's this. And now you are not queening. And if you go king c2, this is a very well-known winning endgame pattern. You give a couple of checks. You get all the way down here. You do this. You check and force the king in front. This is game over. And Magnus did not beat Nihal a whole lot more than Nihal beat Magnus, I gotta tell you. But he still beat Nihal more than 50% of the time. And I mean, Nihal's just an exceptional blitz player. And he got up to around 32-30. And this was the match that Magnus used to get to 32-64 and temporarily take the top spot on chess.com. All right. Hikaru was 32-70 for a brief moment. Then he lost a little bit of rating. This was a game against Salem Saleh from the UAE. One of the, I think he is, is he top 50 in the world? I think he is. I don't know if he's had any setbacks, but Salem Saleh FIDE. What's his FIDE rating? He is 26-77. He is number 62 in the world. Yeah, so, you know, no joke of a player. And in this game, Saleh decided to play like a hippo-style game, right? Like, he literally plays the hippo against Magnus. So Magnus does this and begins an attack with h4, okay? Problem for black. If you play h5, you give up g5. That's fatal, and probably you will just get, you know, chop mated. So knight c6, h5, queen e7 from black. Solid development over here. Now Magnus plays knight h2. We saw Hikaru do the same idea, but Hikaru went the other way, right? He went the other way for the light squares. This knight is probably going to go to g4. Now here Saleh does something really bold. He takes the pawn, which is a crazy move. Saleh is a very aggressive player. Magnus opens up the king and plays d5. Why does he play d5? Because if you want to start an attack, you need the center closed. If you try to go queen e2, then black immediately starts chopping down in the center. Gotta be a little careful here with this check, but you know, if you don't want to rush with that, you can play queen h4, play defense first, but you need the center to be stable. d5 stabilizes the center. Now there's no opening of the position, and now Magnus begins the attack. Knight d7, queen h5. Saleh here plays another completely absurd. I mean, he's a risky guy. Like, he should probably play knight f6, but he's like, no, f5. Magnus is like, really? King G, you sure? Knight g4? Saleh's like, what? I'm getting this center pawn, bozo. Magnus is like, Salem, I don't think you realize what's going on here. Knight takes h6. Bishop takes h6. And now, how does white tip the scale of power in this position? It's not the queen. There's no mate. See, there's no mate. It's very easy to get Uno reversed. The way you win here is you bring the rook. Rook lift. Up and over. And after rook g3 and king f7, queen here, Magnus cuts all of the coordination of the black position here with the move bishop to g7. The knight is hanging. If you take this, you're simply going to lose a devastating amount of material. And if you move your knight, the question, first of all, the question is where? Like, let's say you go here, right? I check you, and I'm going to win your rook. So it doesn't really matter where you move. Queen g6 is on the way. Magnus beat Salem 20-2. And Salem is one of the best players in the world. All right? Magnus won 20 out of 22 games. I mean, this man is sublime. And as of today, I believe he is still the #1 blitz player on chess.com at the rating of 3264. Hikaru 3208. Daniel Naroditsky 3146. Nihal Sarin 3130. And it's Duda who is in 5th, but it's close. I mean, there's a lot, and Bortnik is 5 points away from being in that spot. So there's a group of like 10 grandmasters who are separated by about 10 points, and they are all competing for that spot. So extremely close, and we look forward to any and all Magnus and Hikaru battles as they battle for the leaderboard, and hopefully that they, you know, soon will play a long match against each other as well. Hope you enjoyed today's video. I will see you in the next edition of Magnus and Hikaru dominate the leaderboards or play against each other. Get out of here.